Hello and welcome back to Scriptcase by Jamie. In these videos we are still developing the project which we had started, the client and companies management area, and of course we have a few things here still to do. So we have just confirmed that pretty much everything's in order with our applications. We could add the status here for the clients and companies still. I'm going to leave that for now. Maybe we'll add that later. Otherwise, of course, we make those adjustments here within the form. And well, that's how it is. Maybe we can add those later. We'll see. But we're trying to add multiple features into this and different capabilities and look at different ways of doing different things, all within Scriptcase, of course, because that is where all of the magic tends to happen. Because yes, I don't know what's really happening in the background there. It's not code for sure. It's got to be magic, you know. If only. Okay, so let's dive in, shall we, and check out where we were previously. So we had just added the email settings, the email templates feature into this platform. We still need to link this, however, to our send email. So our send email doesn't actually import anything yet. So we want to apply that. So let's jump straight into Scriptcase, access our admin as well as then the email folder and open our control client email application. And then from here, we can then already start to add some more fields. So what I'm going to do is then add two new fields. I will say two new fields, go next. And the first field, you can guess it, would then be the email type. Okay, and then the next one would be the email TPL. And I will set them both as selects. I'll do that now because then it's automatically configured already. And the labels, well, I will leave them blank and I will add them with our language variables in a few moments. So now that we have our select fields ready, the first thing I want to do is here for our email TPL, well, we want to change here the type first. So let's come here to our select statement, create a new select, and we want to choose here the email type again to be displayed, set the connection. I will use a title and I will save that. Okay, so now that I have my email TPL as well as the type, we want to link the two of them basically in some shape or form together. And we want to do that here also within our select and do some Ajax there. So here for the email type, TPL, we choose again the email TPL table as well as then the email subject. So that is what we want to then display. And what we want to then do, well, I actually wanted to confirm here the type ID. So we need email underscore type ID in capital letters. And there we want to add here a where statement. So where email underscore type ID equals our type field here. So there, inside of the curly brackets, of course, I want to then add our email type. So I can save that now, and I don't want to forget to not set my connection, and I will also set a title. Now if I save that again, I can return back here to my email type, and at the bottom here I have the option to use Ajax to reload other fields, and that's exactly what I want to do now. I want to reload here this email TPL field so that when I've selected here the email type, I then have the email type ID, which we've just configured here within the email TPL select, because we've just configured that here to only load where the type has been displayed. Okay, so if I now go ahead and run that, let's see if it works, shall we? So I run that. We have here the client email being requested as a variable for some reason, and we also have an error here. So let's return back to our Scriptcase application, and here around the type, I'm going to add these little nudgy things here. And if I zoom in, we can see that better, right? Because otherwise, you know, we just go blind with all the small writing. So see, I've just added those. I'm going to now just go ahead and run again. And then we can see if that gives us an error message this time. And we still have here the client underscore email being requested, which is then the 2, and we have no more error. We have our type selected. We have no TPL so type, but we have for welcome, and there we have now our template selected, which is awesome. So let's make another adjustment to that. I'm going to zoom out again, and we're going to come here to edit fields, and I'm going to drag those here to the top. And I think what I want to actually do is create a new block for those. So I'm going to come back here to layout, come to blocks. I'll create a new block, block 0. I won't bother with a label. I don't think I need a label there. Move that up, set that to 2 columns and the label above, and save that. And then I'll come back here to edit fields and drag now the type as well as the email TPL fields into that container. And before I go ahead and run it again, I really want to add those language variables. So I'll come back here to application language and grab those language variables. So we need them for email type and email TPL. So we have here the email type. So I'll grab here this language variable here and place that in there for the email type, linking that to the actual table. So here, of course, we want to have email type displayed here. And we could actually have that in lowercase in this other field here, maybe. And of course, we want to save that. We've just made a change there. And then here for the email TPL, we have here also the language variable here, again, that we can use. I'll update the messages this time, and then come back here to the client control application, and then add there my language variable. And we can see they're actually starting to be populated here within the auto suggestion. So that's what this is here now. We can see there the auto suggestion that is automatically popping up with the language variable suggestions. So if I now open up the form again, we now have our type at the top here as well as the template. Okay, so that's pretty awesome already. And now, well, we want this to do something, right? Because what's it doing right now? Just looking stupid, isn't it? It's just looking stupid right now. It does nothing, just a select. Great. Okay, so we want that now to actually populate here our subject as well as the message with our template that we have chosen. Okay, so if I come back to our control client email form, God, I really need to think of those naming conventions so I don't get tongue-tied while I'm making these videos. Oh my God. Okay, we have at the bottom here the option for Ajax events. So I'm going to create now a new Ajax event, and I want to perform that every time the email TPL has changed. So I will select that and then choose on change, because it's a select menu. Okay, it's a drop down menu. The data or selection essentially changes. It's not a checkbox where you're clicking. Okay, so that's important to note. Now if I click then here create event, we have then created automatically now an Ajax event that can be used with this form every time the email TPL has changed. And what do I want to do? Well, I want to select some fields. So I'm going to use here the examples and select some fields from my database. And of course, we need to confirm our database table. So let's check out here then our database again. And we have then here for email TPL. So this is the table that we want to grab hold of. So we need email underscore TPL for the table, TPL subject, TPL message. So let's adjust that from email underscore TPL. And then here we want TPL subject. And then here we want TPL message, like so. Now we have here also the ID. So let's just quickly confirm the ID there also. And that was ID, email, TPL. So ID, capital letters, email, and TPL, also capital letters. And then where. So now here the field would essentially be here our email type. Okay, so whenever this field updates, the TPL, it would check the email type, which is entirely wrong because we don't want the email type, we want the email TPL. Oof, what am I thinking? Okay, so email TPL, where we choose here the email TPL. And then we, of course, want to add that here to our field. So now here I will say email underscore subject. And then in the next one here, I will say email underscore message. Okay. And that will then bind this basically to these two fields that we have here, our email subject as well as our email message. Now, if that isn't working, then ideally I want to add an error message in here maybe. So I'll add error and error in there also. And you know, if it doesn't find anything. So now if I go ahead and run, let's just find out if it works. Let's start then our form. And now if I come here to the email type welcome, I choose my template, and there we have error, error, what's happening? And to find out what's happening, we can come down here to, application, we come down here to settings, we enable debug mode, and then let's see what is actually happening now with our select here. Maybe I have a typo or something, who knows? We're going to find out. So now I choose my welcome. So that's working nicely. ID set 1. We only have the 1 settings and so forth. Welcome to Scriptcase. And there we have an error. Look. Oops. Unknown column TPL message in field list. And that is when I select here. So that isn't actually on the select of the insert. That's actually the selection that's happening here. When I select that, and then of course it grabs our template, and this field TPL message, well, is not correct. So I'll come back here to our database, and well, TPL message is there. So let's check our form here, come back to our Ajax event, TPL message, TPL massage. So that is correct. And we have 3 S's there. That's what it is. See, going blind and the white background. Yes, so if we need to change our theme, because even right now, yes, seeing that is very difficult, we can always change the theme of this. And wow, yes, the white, it's blinding. Does anybody else go snow blind? If you do, let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to know if I'm the only person that goes snow blind, because it's unbearable. Okay, so now if I go ahead and run this again, and I wonder actually if anybody saw that typo, and if you did, let me know in the comments. Go on, comment. Okay, so we'll now go welcome, and then choose the welcome template, and look at that. We now have our automatic suggestion template added into this. So we're not just writing our own emails no more. We have some AI in here. If only. No, maybe, hopefully, that will come in the future. But for now, no, there is no AI here, I'm afraid. This is just some magic that happens in Scriptcase. Okay, right. Let's come back here then and come back to settings and disable that debug mode. We see that works beautifully. And it also imports then our data into our email form beautifully, and of course we can check that again without debug mode, and there we go. Isn't that just beautiful and so easy to achieve? It's mind-boggling, really is mind-boggling, because I remember having to do things like this by hand, and oh my god, yes, that is very different. So thank you, Scriptcase, for making my life a breeze. Okay, so let's stop now, shall we? Shall we stop? Because I'm debating. Let's have a look. Let's have a look where we are with this project. I think maybe this might just be a really good point to just finish where we are with this project. Okay, everything generated already, so we can just go ahead and run the project. Okay, so now that we are looking at our platform again, we have added our clients in here, we have added our companies, our email log, email templates, as well as email settings. And of course, there are for sure many other options that we would want to include to this. And if I check out the clients, we can see then here the grid application that we've created, as well as the send email option with this template implementation, which is pretty awesome, right? So we can then go ahead and send emails from there, and that then also logs within here our email log. So once we started creating emails and sending them, they will then be displayed here. Now, in general, I'm not a big fan of some of these messages, so I really want to go ahead and adjust these so it says what what's meant to be displayed, because otherwise I could be looking at anything here, and as I do not have a header or anything, I want to visualize really what I'm seeing. Now, of course, I could add a header in here. I'm not going to. I'm just going to go ahead and adjust these grid applications. So I could now come into each folder and open the grid, but instead what I'm going to do is come here to all applications, and then from there choose all of my grid applications. And then I can click here the edit button, and that will then, of course, open each of my grid applications. And then I can go ahead and make that minor change to each of these. And there is another change that I want to make, but we will come to that in a moment before we finish up within this video. So if I come here to SQL, and here I have the option to use a customized message. So I will check that, and then in here I want to display a custom message to the end user. And of course we need to remember all the time that we are using languages. So I'm going to open up here also the application language, and what I will do is then create a new folder here, and I'll call it grid_empty. If, of course, I can spell empty correctly. Right, so there we go, add folder. And now here I will have all of my empty messages. So here I can add then a new language key, clicking the plus, of course, lang underscore, I'll call it grid, capital E for capital E, underscore, and then, so in this case, it's the email TPL. So I'll call it like so. And there we can then start to type our message. So in this case, we would say there are no created templates yet. Okay, and we can then, of course, just paste that into each of these, add that, and there we have our first language key to use here for our first grid. So I will then go ahead and apply that then here to our first grid. And if I go ahead and run that now we do have some email templates there already, so that shouldn't actually display any message, but we will now see that here within our email log. So I'll come back here to SQL, come back down, and then check here the use customized message, and then add here a new language key. So I call it lang underscore grid E, and then underscore emails, let's call it just email log, like so. And then there are no emails have been sent yet. Like so, that would do. Okay, so then I can apply that also here within my grid email log, add our open and close curly brackets, run that, and then just like that, we will now have our custom message applied in here, and also using the language variables. So we want to also apply that here for our grid companies. So I'll add another language key here, lang underscore grid E, and this time let's call it here the companies, and no companies. Okay, my typing is awful today. Companies, no companies have been added yet. Okay, so just like that, we have then added another language variable also here for our grid companies. So we need to enable that and then apply that within our language variable. And then we have one more grid here, which is then the grid clients. So let me add there the customized message, and this time I'm just going to copy that this time and speed that up a little bit. Clients, no clients have been added yet. Lovely. Okay, so there we have then all of our language keys added in here, and of course we could then continue adding the remaining ones if we wanted to. Okay, so there we have now our no records message customized and applied for each of these grid applications. So they will all display a nice friendly message. Now I do personally like to increase the font size for those messages so that they are a little more in one's face. And of course we could change the font here if we wanted to. So I'll very quickly come to each of these applications again and increase the font size to 16. And we can check here in the email log what that would look like by simply running it, because there we have no records displayed, and there we can then see with a 16 font, it's nice and it's nice and present. So there is no doubt that it should be seen by the end user. Okay, so like that, we have that done. We have then our grid applications ready. Now there is one change that I wanted to make still, and that was then for the client as well as the company applications. And if we have a look at these applications, for instance, if I now add a client and then I select here a company, when I come to delete this company, we want it to be restricted. And because we haven't created that relationship within our tables, we can do that now within our applications. Okay, so now that we've applied that to our grid applications, we can go ahead and run that again, and then all of our applications here are updated. Now, there is one really big downside I need to emphasize within our creation here. And one important aspect of that is, of course, when we now add new clients and new companies or anything else, then that could cause some issues. Now, typically, adding relationships between your tables within your database will automatically add those restrictions for you within your applications. So if I open up here the form clients and the form companies, and I could then essentially come here to the dependencies, and you would have something listed here. Okay, so in either one of these, depending on the relationship that you've actually created, whether it is one client per company or multiple clients per company. Okay, so the relationship would then be vice versa, basically. Now, in that case, you would have your dependencies here, and right now we don't have them. So we are going to be kind of stuck. And what we're going to have to do then is really perform a check when a company is deleted. So if I come here to the event on before delete, and then what I want to do is actually check for an existing record. Okay, so we want to check our reference table if a client exists with this company. And if it does, then ideally we want to display an error message and stop the deletion. So we don't want them to be deleted in that case. The company will have to remain there until the references have been removed. And yes, we haven't dealt with that yet. We still have a lot to do there. So this is a weird way of developing the platform. And of course, with more planning, which is also part the idea of this training, is that if you have planned everything out really nicely, then you don't come across these little difficulties, let's say. Okay, so if you're starting out creating your platforms within Scriptcase, I hope you're paying attention that it's a very good idea to have everything planned out first. Otherwise, you could get quite stuck or not be able to continue with your project and have to start all over again by recreating your database. And that has been a thought, believe me. But I did have initially a complex database created, and that is something I wanted to go with. But then, I changed my mind. Because again, I wanted to have some fun on this channel and show you some different ways of doing things. So that is also the idea. Now, here for the form companies, we want to perform this check and actually check within our database table. Now, I need to check the table again. So if I come back here to the root, I log in as root into PHPMyAdmin, and then I need to have here my database. So within my database, I have here the companies _ clients. So that is the table which we want to connect to. So let's jump back to our table here and adjust that. So we update here our check table. We also then want to have then here the company ID. So let's double check here our ID. So let's save that on the way. And our company ID here is ID companies. So of course we can come back now to our on before delete and add that in here, ID companies. Now, I imagine it's the same in the table, but we actually wanted that here. And then, of course, it's important to add those curly brackets because it is essentially a field variable, okay? And then using this field variable, so one of our fields that we have available here, we can then target this and apply that here to our table. So let's just double check that is the same here. ID companies is the same. So if ID companies exists in here, then we can actually say, well, there's no record, there's a record found. If there's no record, we'll just continue, nothing will happen. If there's an error, well, I guess we'll continue then as well. And if there is one found, then we want to display a message. And we have here the option error displaying a message. So let's just grab that one and we can straight away place that here inside of our else that has been created with the previous snippet. So I'll just move that along with the tab and then adjust the code a little bit so that it's a little easier to read. Okay, so we have now here our error test as well as our message, and this is the default script that we have here. We don't really have to use this. We could just type our message directly in here and skip the test because we basically have this test here going on already. Okay, so what I'll do then is delete the test that we have going here, and we can delete this value here as well. We don't need that. We don't need here the help information there, so we can just go ahead and make those minor adjustments so that our code is a little cleaner, and of course, maybe even add a little message here ourselves, send user error, and then here we can then just say, company has clients associated. Okay, so that will then go ahead and delete a well, not delete a company, it should actually give us a message. So let's go ahead and try that. If I go ahead and run, and in fact, before doing that, let's come back down here, access our application and settings, and then also enable here the debug mode so we can see what happens when we are processing this form. So within the form now, if we go ahead and run it, it's going to give us now all of these select queries that are happening. And this is basically our form data. Okay, so this is here our form information, and that then presents us the information down here. Now, if we have any other functionality in here, then those would also display those selects and so forth. Now, if I come here and delete this company, I say, yes, I really want to delete, okay. And now I receive an error message saying the company has clients associated. So I can go okay, and the company has not been deleted. Okay, so just like that, we have then stopped the user from deleting the company without the direct addition of dependencies here within our application. Because if I come here now and try to create a dependency, and I want to create that dependency with my clients table, of course, well, in my clients table, we are not referencing the client, well, the company ID. Okay, so that's impossible. We are not able to do that. So if you have your database all set up with your references beautifully, your relationships, then you will have that here. Your dependencies will be automatically created. But that's not always needed. Okay, the most important thing is, of course, to plan your project, to know exactly what you're going to be doing and how you're going to be dealing with each of these situations, because these are important situations to consider. Okay, so we have our form then ready. We can go ahead here and switch off the debug mode again. I think that works quite nicely now, and that will of course do us for this form. Okay, so I think we are kind of getting there now. This looks like a pretty complete platform. Let's go ahead and run it and see where we are at. Okay, so I can click here on the send, and I have here a send email. The two here, that wouldn't exist now later. This should actually be not there on a live system, because we have basically within the development environment, it will still pass the variables along, even though they should no longer exist. But we can actually go ahead and enforce that. So let's come back here to our home, and we have the application here in our email folder, and open the control client email. So to change that, we can access here our on application init, and here we have our client email equals client email. And ideally, what we want to do here is really add an if statement. So let's just go ahead and start doing that. Let's add our if in here, and we then already have the beginning of something. So let's also add our else, and then we also have the end of something. So what I'm going to do is just copy and paste here the client email equals client email into the else. And here for the if, I will say client email will equal nothing. Okay, so it's going to be empty. And then here within our if statement and our brackets here, I can add here first of all the client email equals client email, remove here our closing tag, and remove the email that I actually want that to be equals as well, because that's important. And then we will add empty hyphens there. Okay, so we're basically saying if the client email is empty, then it's empty. Okay, don't enforce anything. And if it exists, well, then it exists, then we will apply it. Okay, and we also want to make sure we comment out our initial statement here so that doesn't apply. Now, if I go ahead and save, and I can go ahead and run the control client form now. And now if I go nothing, it's empty, then it's empty. And now if I run it again, and if I actually paste in an email address in there, so if I add my email address, jamie@jamieoates.com, and then control client email, and now my email address is existing there. Okay, so I think we are, let's have another look. We should be pretty much, now we want to run the project, not the application. Let's go send email. And see, it's still there. Okay, it shouldn't be there, but of course we are within our within the development environment. So that's something we would then have to test online and then empty that out if really need be. Okay, so we have then our companies, our clients. We can send an email here, email log, our email templates, as well as our email settings. So I think we are going to continue actually adding a few little features in here, but we will have to see in the next video. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying, and catch up in the next video.